Welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations, a series of short and shareable conversation starters for those of us who have or love and support people with a complicated and beautiful brain. Here's your host, Angela Geddes.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Kitchen Table Conversations. I'm excited to say that we've got a brand new version of Kitchen Table Conversations, and this is called a deep dive. So we're going to take a deep dive into one of my books, the first one that I wrote, which is called A Complicated and Beautiful Brain. I've had a number of people request to me to have my materials available via audio. And so rather than creating an audio book, this one in particular is a bit tricky because it does have so many references within it and it has so many QR codes and it's fairly interactive. So to have it as a full audio book would be a bit tricky. We do recommend that the books be purchased in, hard copy. But instead of that, we ended up creating an audio interview, which really highlights a lot of the really main points of the learning and certainly inspires us to learn a bit more. So again, this book was written for anyone who might be impacted by prenatal alcohol exposure or may in fact have a diagnosis of fetal alcohol spectrum disorder. We called the book A Complicated and Beautiful Brain because that's what I see in my office so regularly. Complicated yet beautiful human beings who have this myriad of strengths and areas of real challenge that make things quite puzzling for themselves and for people around them. So in this deep dive episode, you're going to get a quick audio summary of the main messages, what these brain-based differences mean, why understanding matters, and how compassion changes everything. And this book goes a little bit further with strategies, with research, and as I mentioned, QR codes that take you right straight to the evidence and other lived experiences. So when we know better, we can do better, and that's how we prevent both the incidences and the impact of prenatal alcohol and other substance exposures. So we suggest to grab a cup of tea and join me for this deep dive conversation, and then keep learning by exploring a complicated and beautiful brain.
Welcome. Today we're doing a deep dive into Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder, or FASD, which results from prenatal alcohol exposure, PAE. It's a topic that's, it's critically important, but often really misunderstood. And it's obviously deeply sensitive.
Absolutely.
So our goal today is to approach this with, real clarity, honesty, but also a huge amount of compassion. We want to understand the realities, but also focus on the incredible strengths of people living with FASD.
Right. And I think it's vital we frame this as an open, non-judgmental conversation. FASD is it's a lifelong, complex disability. It affects the brain, the body, all stemming from that alcohol exposure in utero.
Yeah.
And the reason we're talking about it is really to provide good factual information, knowledge that can hopefully, reduce both how often PAE happens and also lessen the significant impact it has.
Okay, let's start with the scale because it's kind of staggering. The research seems really clear. PAE is the leading known cause of preventable intellectual and developmental disabilities in the Western world.
It is. That's huge. And the real difficulty in preventing it comes down to timing.
Timing. How so?
Well, the crucial thing to grasp is that the most significant impact, the changes to the developing brain, the cells, it happens incredibly early, often well before a woman typically knows she's pregnant.
How early are we talking? Give us a sense of that time frame.
We're talking the first few weeks. So, for instance, those facial features that sometimes indicate FASD, they develop between day 18 and day 21 after conception.
Wow. Okay, so that's potentially before even a missed period.
Exactly. Long before most people would even think about changing their habits or before, medical advice usually kicks in.
That timing presents a massive sort of cultural challenge, doesn't it? And we have to acknowledge, for anyone listening, maybe thinking about their own experiences.
Yes.
The stats show over half of pregnancies are unplanned. And something like 80% of women of childbearing age consume alcohol.
And when you put those two facts together, the sheer normality of drinking in our society, plus unplanned pregnancies, the risk of PAE happening before someone is even aware, it's extremely high.
Right.
And the shame, the stigma around this conversation is probably the biggest barrier to getting support or even just accurate information out there.
Yeah.
We have to be crystal clear. No parent intends to harm their baby. This has to be about education, support, not blame or shame.
I couldn't agree more. But the messages people get have been so inconsistent for so long. You hear stories, right? People saying their doctor told them, a glass of wine now and then in the third trimester is okay. Or
Oh, definitely. Or just stop drinking once you get a positive pregnancy test. That kind of conflicting advice, it's actively harmful because it stops people making truly informed choices.
So what's the clear message then?
For prevention to work, the message has to cut through all that confusion. It needs to be consistent. And the global expert consensus is simple. When it comes to alcohol and pregnancy, there is no safe time, no safe kind, and no safe amount, period.
No safe time, no safe kind, no safe amount.
Exactly. We need a culture where that's just known, common knowledge. So women feel supported to make the healthiest choices without fear.
Okay, so that brings us to, well, how many people are actually affected? Because this is where it gets really surprising for most people.
It really is. It's not rare at all. Current estimates in North America put the prevalence at around 8%.
8%? That's nearly 1 in 10 people.
1 in 10. Think about that. Statistically, it's more common than autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and Tourette's combined.
That's just pause on that. 1 in 10. So chances are, in any classroom, any workplace, any social group, there's likely someone affected.
Highly likely.
Yet it's so often called the invisible disability. Why? Why the visibility if it's that prevalent?
It comes back to that stereotype, the facial features. Most people think FASD means having those specific features, but the reality, fewer than 10% of people with FASD actually have them.
So 90%. More than 90% don't have the facial features.
Exactly. The vast majority look, physically typical. They blend in.
Yeah.
And that leads to widespread misunderstanding, people not believing it, and just chronic misdiagnosis.
Okay, that explains the invisibility piece.
Right.
Let's talk about the brain itself. We often hear the damage described using that analogy of a buckshot wound. That's such a vivid image. Can you sort of unpack what that means in practical terms?
Yeah, it's a really good analogy because it captures the pattern. The damage isn't like one single injury. It's scattered across the brain's architecture as it's developing, widespread but also localized impacts.
Okay.
And crucially, this is the key part, it leaves some areas completely untouched, functioning perfectly well.
So that's where the confusion comes in, and the brilliance sometimes.
Precisely. You can have these pockets of real strength, even genius, right alongside significant impairments.
So how does that scattered damage create that really uneven profile of skills, the one that's so baffling for parents or teachers?
Well, think about it. You might have, say, a perfectly intact hippocampus, meaning great long-term memory for certain facts or emotional events.
Right.
But maybe the frontal lobe, which handles executive functions like planning and working memory, is significantly impacted.
So you get, what, someone who can talk your ear off about dinosaurs but can't remember a simple instruction.
Exactly that. They might have an amazing vocabulary, be super friendly, great conversationalist. That's a strength you see clearly.
Yeah.
But then they absolutely cannot organize, say, a simple 3-step task like getting ready in the morning or manage money responsibly. That's the impairment.
And people see the strengths.
They see the strength, assume the person can do the other things, and then conclude the difficulties must be, what? Laziness, defiance, bad behavior.
Right. Willful noncompliance.
Yeah.
And so the actual brain injury gets missed.
Yeah.
And the behaviors get labeled as something as entirely like ADHD, maybe, or just seen as a discipline problem.
It's a huge issue
Yeah.
because we end up punishing or treating the symptoms of a brain injury as if they're character flaws or bad choices.
So let's talk about some of those common symptoms that are actually deficits.
Okay. A big one is inconsistent memory, like the example you just gave. They might remember amazing details about something that interests them.
Like the dinosaurs.
Right, but they genuinely cannot recall a curfew they've had drilled into them for 5 years straight. It's not defiance. The memory just isn't reliably accessible in that context. It's very uneven.
Okay. What else? Impulse control must be huge.
Massive. Impulsivity and real struggles with judgment. This can lead to serious adult problems, getting into debt, trouble with the law, losing jobs because of a split-second bad decision.
That sounds incredibly hard to navigate.
It is. Then there's dysmaturity. This is where someone's emotional responses are much more aligned with someone significantly younger.
So like a teenager reacting like a much younger child.
Exactly. A 16-year-old might have the emotional regulation of, say, a 7-year-old, which makes relating to same-age peers really difficult. They often gravitate towards younger kids where the social demands are lower.
And that difficulty connecting cause and effect. You hear about that a lot. repeating the same mistakes.
Yes. It often looks like they have no fear or they just lack inhibitions, but it's often a struggle to mentally link an action now with a consequence later. The connection just isn't solid.
Which must be incredibly frustrating for everyone involved.
Hugely. And then there's confabulation. This one is so important and so often misunderstood.
What is that exactly?
It's not lying. It's the brain spontaneously filling in gaps in memory or retelling a story based on their internal sense of truth, what they feel happened, or maybe what they think should have happened.
Even if it's totally different from objective reality.
Completely different. But to them, it feels true. And observers almost always interpret this as deliberate deception, as lying, which you can imagine just destroys trust.
Yeah. Wow. So when parents, teachers, therapists,
when the support systems see these behaviors but only look through a lens of, say, trauma or mental health or parenting techniques, they're missing the fundamental underlying cause, the brain difference, and the interventions are unlikely to work effectively.
And the cost of getting it wrong, it's not just emotional, is it?
Not at all. It's astronomical, financially, personally. We saw research, one case study, where for just one child up to age 9, the estimated cost of services that didn't work was nearly $95,000.
$95,000.
Yep. That was for things like repeated psych assessments, therapy that wasn't FASD informed, maybe inappropriate school placements, even residential treatment. All before anyone even considered FASD as their root issue.
Almost $100,000 spent, essentially, going down the wrong path. And think about the human cost, that decade of struggle for the child, the family, the burnout, the lost potential.
Exactly. It highlights why getting the diagnosis and the right kind of support is so critical. It's not just about helping the individual. It's about basic efficiency in our systems.
Which leads us, I think, to a really important shift in perspective. We can't just talk about the challenges and deficits.
No, absolutely not. If we only focus on what's wrong, we perpetuate the stigma and we completely miss seeing the whole person.
Yeah.
We have to embrace a strength-based approach.
And the strengths are really significant. The research points to things like exceptional creativity, artistic gifts.
Definitely. Huge resilience and tenacity, too. Just think about navigating a world every single day that fundamentally doesn't get how your brain works. That takes incredible strength.
Sure. What else?
Often a really strong desire for connection. They tend to be very friendly, really likable, outgoing people, often non-judgmental, very tolerant of others.
That's lovely.
Yeah. They can be great conversationalists and show a really strong work ethic if the task is clear, concrete, and makes sense to them. These aren't small things. These are real gifts.
Gifts that need the right environment to actually shine.
Exactly.
So, if the goal isn't necessarily fixing the brain injury, because it's permanent, and maybe the goal isn't always total independence, what does success look like? What should we be aiming for?
That's the key question. And the answer really is interdependence.
Interdependence. Okay.
We need to shift away from this societal obsession that success equals complete unsupported independence. For many people with FASD, because of the permanent brain differences, that specific goal might be unrealistic. Setting it just sets them up to feel like failures.
Right. So interdependence means relying on ongoing support for certain things.
Yes. Relying on a committed, consistent network, family, friends, professionals for specific life tasks. Maybe it's managing money or remembering appointments or navigating complex systems like benefits or housing.
While they manage and excel in the areas where they are strong.
Precisely. Success looks like stability. It means having a stable income, safe and suitable housing, maybe employment with accommodations that understand FASD needs, and underpinning all of that, a reliable, lifelong circle of support.
That idea of lifelong support, like permanent scaffolding, that feels crucial. But it also seems to clash with how a lot of support services work, doesn't it? Often funding gets pulled when someone shows progress.
That is a massive systemic hurdle. Agencies often see progress and think, great, they're better, they don't need us anymore. But the progress is often because of the support.
So removing the support is like kicking away the ladder they just climbed.
Exactly. It tests their vulnerability, not their recovery. We have to advocate constantly for the understanding that the brain difference is permanent. The support, the scaffolding needs to remain, maybe adjusted over time, but not removed just because things are going well. Success is the support working.
Okay. So, wrapping this up, what are the big takeaways for us, for you listening? This deep dive really highlights that FASD requires, well, a pretty profound shift. Culturally, systemically.
Definitely.
It demands that we learn to look beyond behaviors that might seem like poor choices or maybe remind us of ADHD and see the actual brain injury underneath.
And maintain that compassionate, informed tone, always looking for the strengths, not just the challenges.
And it feels like investing in better FASD awareness and support isn't just about helping this specific group of people, is it?
No, it's much broader. We need to recognize PAE as a foundational factor, almost like an adverse childhood experience that intersects with so many other complex social issues.
Like mental health, addiction.
Mental health, addiction, the justice system, homelessness, poverty. If we want to make real headway in those areas, we have to account for the significant portion of people affected by prenatal alcohol exposure within those populations. If we miss FASD, many of our other efforts might just fall short.
That makes so much sense. This knowledge, it really does give us a responsibility to act differently.
It does. There's that great quote often attributed to Maya Angelou: do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better.
Yeah.
So the challenge, I think, for everyone listening is, how can you take this understanding, this developmental lens, and apply it in your own families, your workplaces, your communities? We all have a part to play in reducing the impact of FASD now that we know better.